welcome everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges as he explores turning the page on his life and yours. Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Paul. Nice to be here with you, and I'd like to welcome all our listeners to the next chapter with Charlie. This is the show where we discuss ideas about what it might take for you to move on to your next chapter in life, whether that be large or small. My guest today is Mike, a vice president at Citizens Business Bank. Mike has been involved with finance and banking for more than 25 years. And the division that he guides today at the bank continues to increase radically in revenues, and his leadership is highly respected in the organization. But leadership nor banking are the subjects I want to talk with Mike about today. No, today we're going to jump into what I'm calling, and half of you probably won't even know what I'm talking about. I'm going to jump into Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, surely you remember Rocky and Bullwinkle. If you don't, you've got to look it up. Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine takes you way back, and we're going way back to the 1980s and before.
Way back.
way back, yeah, 25 years. Well, we'll go back before that. When Mike was a baseball player, and we will focus on a lot on that, both in youth baseball and pro baseball. And what I want to talk about today are mostly the unknown trials of minor league baseball. It's overwhelming, and we'll get into that. Mike played baseball his entire life. That is, until he didn't play anymore. And that's what I want to talk about today, because not playing anymore wasn't his decision, nor was it a coaching decision saying you're not good enough to play. There's some other things that came up. And what I want to talk about is one man's journey through what he never really expected, and we'll see how this all comes out. So why don't we get this thing going, and let's talk to Mike. Mike, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Charlie?
I'm doing well. It's so great to have you on the show. We've talked about this for about a year now.
Probably, yeah. It was my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Well,
it's exciting.
It's great to have you here. So I want to get right into baseball. I want to get right into our stuff.
My dear love.
your dear love. Yes. Tell me a little bit about your baseball career, starting at youth ball, so we have an idea, so we have just kind of a grasp of where you've been and what you've done.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I really got into Pee Wee baseball when I was 7 years old. My dad, who's just come over from Ireland, I'm the firstborn generation here from Ireland, didn't know anything about baseball, self-taught himself. We were driving down the street one day, and in a park there was a little team that looked like my size. My dad, they look like they were your size, so let's go talk to them. Well, unfortunately, the coach said, no, you got to be 8 years old, and come back next year. And I said, well, can I just hit a couple, throw around a little bit, work out with you guys for a little bit? He said, yeah. Well, by the time we got done with the practice, he was trying to figure out a way to get me on his team exclusively at that point.
So wait a minute. Let's stop there. How did you get that good to that point?
I don't know. I came out of, I was born with a bat in my hand. I was always told that, and always had a cannon and a bat, and always played with guys that are in that same caliber and better. And we just, it was just a passion. I had no other desire to do anything else in that time of my life than to play baseball. I eat, slept, and drank. I didn't have girlfriends and nothing.
No other sports, nothing, just baseball.
I played other sports, yeah. Once I got into high school, I played other sports. But up until that point, no, it was all baseball. And I monkeyed around a little basketball. Everybody wants you. When you're fast, everybody wants you on their team, whether it's football, basketball,
so you had
track and field.
You had wheels.
I had, a lot of wheels.
So you started it at 8 years old.
Actually started at 7 because I got pulled onto that team. I don't know how he did it, but next thing I know, I get a phone call from him and goes, "Come on out." So I remember it was called the Orange Panthers. I remember it well. And so I played finished I guess almost half, maybe 3/4 of the season as a 7-year-old, and then played as an 8-year-old on the Pee Wees. From that point on, I went to the actual majors. They had the Pee Wees, you had the minor leagues, which are anywhere from 9-year-old and 10-year-olds, and then you had the majors, which is technically supposed to be 10 to 12, but I made the major team as a 9-year-old. and actually beat out the incumbent center fielder they had as a 9-year-old, and things were just taking off from there. And it just was something that I loved so much. I put in all the extra effort. I mean, how many kids at 8 and 9 years old will stay after practice and take extra BP and take extra fielding and grounding? Most kids at that age want to go home and play Army, whatever, play games, right? And I would stay at the field. And if the coach wasn't staying, my dad would stay. So that's how obsessed I was with the game.
Yeah, and you know who the guys who did that are the guys who are in the big leagues right now.
Well, like your son.
Yeah.
Son's a major leaguer, so absolutely. I'm sure he went through the same process.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
He would just come home at night and it would be all on his own. I wouldn't have to take him do anything. He would
Never had to ever once, and coax me to go to practice. Come on, you're going to be late. I was dressed, ready to go. I was always there. I learned what Lombardi time was, and that was 15 minutes before anything. So practice was at 4. You were there at 3:45. I was, and I learned that trait, and I kept that with me forever.
On time is
On time is 3:45.
Is 15 minutes before.
That's on time.
That was kind of the way we always played.
Yeah.
On time is 15 minutes
Exactly.
before. So okay, so you did Little League, then you played 1 year. I think you said in Colt League.
Sure, went through Little League.
Colt League is like 14-year-olds.
Colts were like 14, 15, and I went over there as actually Colt League is 13 to 15, I think it was.
13 to 15.
But again, I went over there as a 12-year-old. Again, I don't know how there was strings pulled all the way. I was being scouted when I was 12. I'd be practicing, and there was always a Mets coach that would always show up during my practice. Always show up on the sidelines. And one day after practice, he approached my dad and I, and because it's obviously you can't approach a minor like that, and said, "Can I talk to your son? Can I work him out a little bit?" I'm like, we kind of at first, well, who are you? And he confirmed his credentials, and so we started working. And from that point on, it was funny. I would have these people just pop up in the stands with clipboards, and there wasn't any jug guns back in that day, but they'd pop up with clipboards and would take notes. And they'd kind of come in after the game. After the game started, and they'd leave before it ended. So they were just trying to get a nice little test of what I can do, and just watch what I would did, while I played the game.
And you were 11 years old when that.
No, 12.
12.
I was 12 years old when that started happening. Yeah.
Okay, and then you go to high school,
Mm-hmm.
and just because of political reasons, you play a year of freshman ball.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's always difficult for freshmen to play varsity because there's so many varsity parents that are going absolutely bonkers.
No, I wanted it so bad you couldn't believe it. I was heartbroken when they said, "No, you go do this." No way, I can do this. Give me a chance.
I'm better than these guys.
You know what? I believed it all the time. You're not going to make it if you don't think you're better than the guy in front of you. I mean, so just go home. You have to think you're better than that guy. You know you can beat him out of that position. You have to will yourself into that. Even if you lack a little bit of talent, make it up in some other area. Speed, batting, switch hitting, fielding. There's so much you can do to kind of differentiate yourself from the player that's in front of you and take that job. So that was my focus. I figured out a way to do it, and I just do it. And I just let all my little talent and attributes just come to the forefront and go hard.
You know what you sound like right there? You sound like almost every big leaguer I've talked to. I mean, that is the way they think.
Yeah.
They think they're better than everybody else, and if there is a guy better than them, they'll figure out a way to get better than the guy that's better than them. Okay, there's something, he has a weakness. I am going to excel at his weakness, and I'm going to catch up to his strength.
That's so true, Charlie. Once you stop and second guess yourself, it's over. You're done. You can never stop and second guess your talents. Will you go through slumps and things like that at times? Yeah, but that's internally you have to process that. But once you put the cards on the table and let you be weak in front of your competitor, you're done. You might as well just go home. So I never let that happen. I was always just hard-nosed, to the grindstone, focused. You asked me to do anything, I would do it. I loved it. I would carry the gear if you wanted me to. I didn't care what it was. I just wanted to be part of a team.
You know, people don't understand that, and I think it probably is true with every professional sport. But since our familiarity is baseball, with more extensive experience with baseball, but that you cannot you cannot allow yourself an alternative. Like, well, if I don't make it at baseball, the second you think if I don't make it at baseball, then you're not going to make it at baseball.
Yeah, you're right. I had no alternative. I really didn't. That was just the one thing I wanted to do forever, my whole life.
And I'd like the audience to keep that in mind, because that plays a really key role later in your development. That as you do that your only goal in life is to be a professional baseball. So when did you really think, okay, professional baseball is what I'm going to do? Did you think that?
When I was born. How's that? The day I was born.
Okay.
I was looking for a bat. Where's the bat?
I believe it. My I said I won't talk a lot about my son, but at 10 years old, my wife asked my son, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" And he says, "I'm going to be a professional baseball player."
Yeah, you have to believe that.
And she said, "Well,
everybody says that when they're a kid, right?
That's very difficult. What are your alternatives?" And he says, "Mom, you don't understand. I'm going to be a professional baseball player."
That's where you have to think that way. You really have to do. I mean, I remember my dad. I'm a first generation Irish, so my dad came over from Ireland, had no idea what baseball was about. All they played was football or soccer, if you call it. You want to call that in American terms. And so he educated himself through books and watching baseball on TV, and so he just started taking me out in the backyard as soon as he could. And when I was breaking windows at 5 years old, he said, "Well, we got to get you on a bigger field. We can't do this in the backyard anymore." I broke 2 or 3 windows and hitting the ball back at him, and so it just kind of excelled from there. My dad was my hero and a great coach, and God rest his soul.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's such
he
a great
died too young, but he was just a great. We butted heads, of course. We always butted heads, but at the end of the day, we talked stuff out because I knew he knew, and I knew he had himself so well educated with books. That's what he liked to do. That he wasn't talking a bunch of stuff that wasn't true. It was all stuff to help me in my development. So I followed that closely.
So when did you decided you came out of the womb thinking you're going to be a professional baseball player? I get that.
Maybe not that early, but in my mind I was.
I know. I get that. I do get that. And you're reminding me of something. There really is something different about a guy that thinks, "Oh, it'd be fun to play professional baseball," or, "No, this is what I'm going to do. This is it." There's really different characteristics. So you thought that early on. Was there a time in your career as youth, up through high school, that you said, "You know what? This is more than a dream. This has a chance. I have, we all know by that time it's an outside chance." But
well, for this egotistical Irishman, it was when I got first scouted at 12 years old. That's when I said, "Whoa, if this guy's taking the time to work out with me individually at this baseball field, why would he do that if he didn't see there was something there that might be able to be developed?" Because he'd be, like I said, he'd park over, and like 2 or 3 weeks, he'd park over on the side and watch our practices, and then this was the practice when it was with the Colt team, and then just leave. And then one day, as everybody was leaving, my dad and I were walking away, and that's when he approached us and said, "Can I work your son out a little bit?" So that time, my Lord, the antennas went up, and I thought, "Holy crap, man, maybe I've got a chance, a real legitimate chance at this, even at that young of age." And that's when my confidence skyrocketed. It took that one gentleman to step into my life, give me some time, and I just went over the top at that point. That's when at that point, at 12 years old, I was already switch hitting. My dad had taught me to switch hit.
Unreal.
So the prototype lead off hitter, steal bases all the time, switch hit, center fielder, covered everything, and hit. My whole career was close to 500. Literally hit 500 almost my whole career. Until I got to the big boys. And then you find out, all these guys are really good.
Yeah, all of a sudden, now now it's a bunch of equals, and now it's the better of the equals.
On a level playing field, yeah.
But I don't think, I really don't think our audience catches that. There are not a lot of careers. There may be, maybe other than sports, maybe some scientists, maybe some writers, maybe some gifted artists that at 12 years old, they knew this is it. But most people don't know. We don't know at 20 what we're going to be doing. But at 12 years old, you are set, and that is important, as I continue to say for later on, that there is nothing else in your life. There's nothing but baseball. When you came to that realization, did that change the way you worked out and you trained?
Oh my God, yes. That sent me into another level of just cooperation with the game is what I call it. I just wanted to be part of that game, and I'd do anything I could to cooperate with the game. And I just would whatever you wanted, I would do it for you. And that's what really pushed me even harder. I started working out. My dad bought me weights back then, the old plastic cement-lined weights used to have, and the barbell, and bought a little bench. And I started lifting weights back when I was 12. And that's that. When I found out that just maybe, there's a chance, that's when I started running more, lifting weights, just doing stuff that most 12-year-olds wouldn't do.
You're doing stuff that college guys are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time, today high school players are doing that, but in the, what would that be, in the 70s?
Yeah, let's see. I was born in 1960, so I was a 9-year-old in 69, so back in the crazy days. And you're right. I mean, high school players didn't even do that. I kind of brought a different flavor as I moved along. You know, I really brought a different flavor to a lot of teams that I played with. And I like to consider myself, I was, you know, so much of a leader that people took note and maybe tried to use some of those techniques that I use, some of the methods and the desire that I had. I know it sounds really kind of big-headed, but it wasn't. For me, it was a passion. I was driven to do that. I didn't care about what you thought about me. All I wanted to do was get on that field and get dirty.
Okay, so your chance comes. You finish high school, and you win a scholarship to be a.
Well, I was drafted, but that's when my dad stepped in and said, "No. He said, you got to go to school first. If you're good enough, we'd be waiting for you." So I went to school.
Really? So you were drafted out of high school?
Yeah. Most players that have any talent are all thrown in the draft. The OC
See,
draft.
I know that now. I didn't know that was true in the 60s, but I know that's or in the 70s. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you had any type of talent whatsoever, I mean, why not? Why wouldn't you take a chance on a kid and see what happens? There was no giant signing bonuses back then, so it wasn't like they were losing anything. It's
That's right.
It's just they supply you with the gear and all the confidence you need, and every place you want to work out. But workout rooms were unheard of. So yeah, it was just me pulling myself through everything. And as you move along, you can see now the high schools now. I mean, the 12-year-olds now. I mean, they've got weight rooms they work out in.
Oh my goodness!
Personal trainers.
It's amazing.
These kids go and have Tommy John surgery at 12 years old, so their arm will be stronger later. It's crazy.
They got hitting coaches.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, the parents are paying $100 to $250 to $300.
I was one of those guys.
A month.
I was one of those guys. I worked with a bunch of young little leaguers and girls softball as well. That's a different world, let me tell you.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but I do know I appreciate the sport.
I coached it, and
it's so fun.
I had a team, I'll tell you, one year, Charlie, I had a team that I put them against any 12-year-old baseball team, boys baseball team, and they would have smoked them.
Really?
Yeah, I kid you not. The girl, here's the way I just try to describe it, because people ask me the difference. I said, well, with boys, you can tell them to go run through the wall, and they'll go run through the wall, no problem. With girls, you can tell them to go run through the wall, but you better have a darn good reason as to why they have to run through that wall. That's the difference. That's the difference.
The girls will say, okay, what's the purpose
Coach, yeah,
of
but
this?
why exactly am I doing this?
Okay, listen, what I want to do is now I want to break down your time as a professional baseball player. People, now let's make a little bit of a distinction, is that people don't understand. Many times they think professional baseball player means big league baseball player, but I'm talking professional, which is minor league. You're getting paid. If you're getting paid, you're a professional athlete.
Right.
You're not in the big leagues yet. You're in the minors, and I want to talk about the minors. But before I do that, I would like to take a break, and then we will come right back. Hi, this is Charlie Hedges, and you're listening to The Next Chapter with Charlie. And today I am visiting with Mike, who is a very successful businessman, vice president of a bank, has been involved in finance and banking for over 25 years. But today we are talking about Mike's experience as a youth baseball player and a minor league baseball player on track to become a big league baseball player. And let me start off with this. In order to be drafted, you have to be good. I mean, like really, really good. Scott Boras, a famous baseball agent right now, maybe the most famous baseball agent,
absolutely.
broke down to me one time the odds. So this is here's the way the odds
That's
work.
scary.
It's just, but it's really all it is eliminating a zero. So right now there are 5 million youths playing baseball. Of that 5 million, 500,000 will play in high school. Of the 500,000 that play in high school, 50,000 will play in college. Of the 50,000 who play in college, 5,000 make the minors, which is about what is in the minors.
Yeah,
Between
sounds about right.
4,800 and 5,500 is in the minor leagues. Of that 500, of that 5,000, 50 each year will make the big leagues. Well, actually, not just get a cup of coffee. I mean, somebody that makes the team.
Some tenure.
And of that 50, 5 will make the 6 to 7 year free agency. So we're talking to make that free agency, the guys that are making, everybody's complaining about these guys that are making all this money. 5 of them out of 5 million.
Yeah.
Will get to this position.
That's staggering.
You're pretty elite at that point. So just to, I love to tell people the guy sitting on the bench in on a professional baseball team or a professional basketball team is better than any athlete you've ever met in your life.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're just far superior, and they're sitting on the bench. They're not good enough to be a starter or even get a lot of play time, but they are still a better athlete than you've ever met.
Without a doubt. I went through a period of time during the youth baseball where I was being intentionally walked a lot of times just because don't pitch to him.
Don't
if there's a runner on base, don't pitch to him. We'll pitch to him with no runners on base. Yeah. It was crazy.
But why would you pitch it with no runners on base when you're just going to steal to third anyway?
I pretty much did that. It was pitch 1 second, pitch 2 third, and here we go.
So it's like a triple.
It really was.
A walk is a triple.
It really was.
All right. Now I want to break this down, and then I want to talk to you a bit about the minor leagues. And the minor leagues. No one, I think, thinks they're glorious, but I don't think anyone knows how difficult they really are.
Yeah.
Now, the first thing, it wasn't this way when you played, but it is now. There are 6 divisions of minor leagues. Before you get to Major League Baseball, you have to play rookie ball. You have to play, or this is the order. They can bring you in anywhere they want to bring you in.
Right.
But the order is rookie ball, short season, low A, high A, double A, triple A, and then you can make the majors. And then there's the triple A plus, the guys that just kind of vacillate going back and forth between the majors.
Yeah, that's a tough spot.
That
is
is
the toughest.
Oh man,
that's
I know
a place
these
where
guys.
you got your one hand in, one hand out, and it's just your heart's breaking all the time. It's a really tough. I wasn't there, but I can know it would be. I just know there's so many great AAA players that could be on any other team, and somehow they're kind of stuck there because they're behind an all-star or something of that nature. And actually wish to be traded a lot of times. Maybe they traded to a team that had a spot for them.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course,
Absolutely.
yeah. And the treatment of a big leaguer and even of a AAA guy gets treated like gold compared to the rest of the minor leagues, and it is nothing compared to big leagues. So you've got this long. I read today the average tenure of a guy that actually makes it is 4 to 6 years. Takes him 4 to 6 years out after he's drafted before he will make the big leagues.
And that's a pretty fast track, really, to be honest, because there's a lot of guys that are stuck in there for a long time, become almost professional minor leaguers, if you will. Well, they are professional, but I mean, as far as their job is concerned. But 4 to 6 years is not too bad. I mean, there's the bonus guys out there that go, the Robin Yountz of the world and the Alex Rodriguez of the world and Derek Jeters of the world that go right to the game, right?
Yeah.
Right to the big leagues and get 5 World Series.
Bryce Harper's.
Harper's, right, guys like that. But really, that's probably a good timeline. I mean, I don't think that's too extensive. I think outside of that, then you start getting stale and getting overlooked. Because if you haven't made an impact in the first year or 2 or 3, chances are you're not going to make an impact. It's just sad.
And after 6 years, the percentages really drop. I mean, I think I read where it said of the players that play minor leagues, 10% will make the major leagues, but the number is actually closer to 9%. 9%. So there's all these guys. You've got these 5,000 guys who at least 2/3 of them are pretty confident they're going to make the big leagues.
Right.
They're pretty confident that they're going to make the big leagues, and only 9% of them are going to do it.
Yeah.
So tell me about, what is the lifestyle in the minors? You make no money. You make $12,000 to $15,000 a year.
Yep.
After you put in all of your hours, you make below minimum wage. You go to these old clubhouses
Right.
that sometimes are 30 and 40 years old. You have long bus rides, 15-hour bus rides, and sometimes the bus rides.
Those are brutal.
And sometimes you get off the bus and you go right and you play the game.
Yeah,
You don't
start
even have
warming
time
up.
to
Here
go
we
to a
go.
hotel.
Yeah.
Just get your uniform on. And then also a strange thing that I found, not strange, but it changes when you get to the big leagues, is that when you're in the minors, you're only about personal performance.
Correct.
You're about thinking, my numbers have to be good. You move up to the big leagues, you got to be thinking about a team. You can't
where
be
do you fit in the best?
You
right.
can't be thinking about your numbers don't matter anymore. Your numbers are you making that team better? Are you doing something? And that is something that's not focused. So I just gave you, I kind of answered my own question, but why don't you, I'd love your take on the lifestyle in the minors.
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's a brutal grind, and you'd be surprised how that weeds out a lot of guys right out of the gate. Just that schedule. Guys will just say, forget this, and quit. Saw a lot of that because it's brutal, because of the bus rides, because of the hotels that are infested with all kinds of little critters, because of making no money, starving to death, so to speak. Because of all those things, guys just pack it up and leave. So that's where that's kind of where there's a little bit of a weeding process right there, just in that process alone. And you really have to, like I said, we talked about this earlier, if you don't have it in your heart to play ball, you might as well just go home. It's got to be deep-seated in your heart to be the best ball player you can be, do anything you can do, and become obsessive. I mean, you really have to be that kind of player. So I understand. So it was tough. It was very tough. A lot of disappointment, a lot of second-guessing yourself a lot of times. Is this the right thing? Especially if you get stuck somewhere for a little bit. I was fortunate enough that I didn't get stuck too long. I kind of moved up, pretty good, but still, just to get there is such a long road to hoe.
What do you think? Our audience is when they think of baseball players and salaries, they're thinking of those 5 to 7 guys a year that make those big.
Right.
But the other guys are not making bad salaries. I mean, let's don't get ignore the fact that they're making really good money
Sure.
as a rookie. How many guys do you think are there guys out there that are playing for the money, saying, "Man, this is a great way to make a living," or is it more just the love of the game? I'd play this thing for nothing.
I would hate to think that that's what they're doing, because that's the wrong attitude to have, and you're not going to make it. You got to play for. I would have played for nothing. I mean, I pretty much did play for nothing, if you really want to get down to it. But I would have played for nothing, absolutely. It's just something that, you really can't describe it. You just can't describe it to somebody. It's only guys like your son would know, and other guys that I played with that were major leaguers as well, made it to the major leagues. They know, I know. Otherwise, I don't know necessarily if you'd want to consider that a career, because it'd be a tough career to have, and you'd probably be pretty hungry along the way.
There's a famous movie, Bull Durham.
Mm-hmm.
How close is that to reality?
Pretty close.
Is it really?
That's one of the best I think that's the best baseball movie out there, and I would have to tell you that just from my personal opinion, that's pretty darn close. Really close. In fact, probably almost point on at some spots.
Is that right?
Yeah,
really?
It was brutal. I mean, there was obviously
even pitching with a garter.
No, that's some fabrication. You didn't see stuff like that. Hollywood's got to get their script straight as well, right? But
you know what? I know some pretty superstitious guys.
Yeah.
I might not doubt it.
I was one of them. I'll tell you, I was one of them.
Were you?
Oh,
what were
yeah.
your superstitions?
When I got dressed, I had the same left sock I wore on the left. I mean, I actually had L and R on my damn socks. I had left had to go to the left, right had to go to the right. Certain way I put my pants on. Certain types of sleeves I would wear.
Certain way you put your pants on.
Yeah, literally the way I put my pants on. Honest to
And then
God.
if you didn't, what would you do?
I would be, I would feel uncomfortable. I never really had that happen to me. I've been rushed before, but it always kind of came together. But I would be, it's an uncomfortable feeling. It's really, I know it sounds crazy, but it is. It's an uncomfortable feeling.
That's amazing.
I mean, I always had a wad of Red Man in my mouth. If I didn't have that, I would be uncomfortable. In fact, one day I got there and I didn't have any, and I was like panicking. And one of the guys in the team said, I got a whole bag full. And once I got that in, I was like, whew, everything just settled down at that point. It's just weird things like that. Don't step on the lines. I was one of those guys, didn't step on the lines.
Okay, I'm going to go like 3 or 4 level deeper. We've been talking about what the miners are like. Now I want to talk about Mike's adventures in the miners. Why don't you sort of tell me your whole story?
What happened in?
Well, so you kind of move up quickly from A ball to double
Okay,
A ball,
sure.
and you're ready to go. You got your sights in mind.
Right.
The managers have their sights in mind. The front office.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, we're thinking probably.
Well, I'm thinking they do, because if you don't think
the-
that, you're in trouble.
The suits are thinking that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's your whole world is built around this sport, and the love of this sport, and all the people in your life know that and support you, and then in one spring afternoon it's over that quick, and that happened to me.
One spring afternoon, it's over.
Yeah, just that fast.
It's over.
It's over. It's done. That quick.
Tell me about it.
Well, basically for me, I blew out my knee. I did a hook slide into second base, which I never did. I was a head first guy everywhere I went. I'd go head first into first, everywhere. And if for some reason I did a hook slide this time, and my foot caught the bag, and my weight and my foot stayed there, but the rest of my body just kept on going, and it just blew my knee out, literally almost out the front of my knee. I tore everything, all the ligaments, blew up cartilage, did some damage to my kneecap. It was brutal, brutal. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. And I went into this, not a depression just of yet, because I rehabbed, got back into shape, blew it out again, and then I knew at that point that, this is going to be don't call us, we'll call you. So after 2 rehabs, and I've actually had 3 reconstructive surgeries. The one was just to kind of get myself back where I could function and be able to walk normally and have a normal life afterwards. But yeah, it was, I fell into a deep, dark hole. It was bad. I didn't want anybody around me. I hated everybody. I hated God. I hated you. I hated your family. I hated everything. I even started to hate baseball too. It just was just so overwhelming for me to have that gone when you're just that obsessed with something and somebody just takes it right out of your hands. It's tough to swallow. It's very tough to swallow. And I had a lot of trouble working through that. I had a lot of counseling and depression and things like that, and a lot of medical advice and help that I needed along the way. And that's what kind of got me back. It took a few years, but got me back into society, if you will, as a normal operating human being, and not be so hateful and regretful. And there's days I look back on it and I dwell a little bit and go, God, what if? But the thing is, what if is that, could I have made it? Well, the problem is, I don't know if I'd have made it, because I don't know if I would have made it. If that makes sense. It's really hard to swallow that sometimes, because you think you have that opportunity. And for now, not knowing that you can't do that, it leaves a big question mark.
You can't even give it a shot.
I can't even give it a shot. No, I was done.
Yeah.
I was done.
Yeah.
I couldn't get back up to speed.
So okay, so you finally get to the position where you're done. You've got a college degree, but you have no experience in any business
Nothing.
life. I mean, you've not even thought of business life.
No.
You don't even know. So what do you do?
Yeah. Well, for me, again, it was guidance of my dad. My dad was an international CFO for a large company, and so he was always behind numbers all the time. And he used to tell me, some kind of accounting or controller or something like that. And I'm going like, oh man, I can't do this. I can't go sit behind a desk 8, 9, 10 hours a day and do this. And so I was just bouncing around my head. So I ended up getting a teller job at a local bank. And that was fun because I could interact with people again. I was back doing my thing, being my salesman guy. How you doing? Da-da-da-da, all the cocky stuff that you would do as a confident baseball player. So I started there. I started literally as a teller in a branch, and then was basically put on an officer development program where you rotated around branches. You rotated to the sales side, quality control, operations, things of that nature. And when I got to the sales side, I said, hey, I could do this. Because, again, I could use my personality, the charisma, if I have it, I think I have it, just life's journey. Because that's how I would put everything back into perspective, that this is how you get there. If you want to be successful in banking, here's how you have to do it. Here's the drive you have to have. Here's the things you have to do. And I kind of put all that back into play and just took off from there. I went from a teller to being on the sales platform to being an associate vice president to being a vice president in kind of a smaller role, and then got a chance at a couple larger banks and actually getting a vice president manager and run a complete equipment finance division for a very reputable bank here in Orange County, actually California.
I was just thinking of a question, and I completely forgot the question. So, is this fulfilling you at this time? Are you kind of getting that back, where you're getting a sense of, I got a purpose in life. I've got a sense of of well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. It really did. Finding sales sides of anything, being a salesman, whether kind of salesman you had, really allows you to be kind of who you are. Let your personality come out. So you can kind of find and fill a little bit of that gap. Will it ever completely replace baseball? No, I'd be lying to you if I said that. But I don't sit there and live in the past anymore. I have people that I manage now. I have success at what I do. I have quotas I have to make. So my focus is basically now running a team. So now I'm a coach. I'm just a coach in banking, as opposed to being a coach in Little League, which I did for many years. So now I coach a bunch of other kids, new guys, teach them the process, teach them how to make a sales call, how to do a cold call, how to do a warm call, how to do a closing call, things of that nature. Those are all things you do as a salesperson, little adages we use as a salesperson. And so for me, I'm kind of like back in that love again, loving what I'm doing, enjoying what I'm doing very much. And it just took a little different turn. I had a little bump in the road along the way, but once it took the right turn and I got involved in something that was fun and not just mundane, because there's nothing mundane about a sales guy's life. It's like being in the minor leagues. Sometimes you're out there pounding the pavement. I did a lot of pavement pounding back in the early days, trust me. I earned my stripes. So it was similar to coming through baseball, literally.
So, but you had to start, how old were you when this happened?
I was, at that point, like 25.
25. So you really started your life at 20, well, you probably had a year of depression.
Yeah, it was a good solid year. I went through a lot of, it was.
Was it a good solid year?
Oh, yeah. Maybe a little longer, yeah.
Yeah. And then did you just, and you and your dad, you just kind of wrote out a plan and said, okay, let's
well, he not even so much wrote out a plan. He just made some suggestions. And I was talking to other people about, God, I can't go do this. I just can't sit there and push a pen and numbers all day behind it. There's no way I can do this. There's got to be some other way. And people said, well, think about sales. So I kind of took the two. My dad's love in banking. My dad's love as a finance guy, not banking. He wasn't a banker, but as a finance guy. And the fun of being a teller in the bank, because I saw that kind of freedom that they had to talk and engage with people, and hey, Mr. Jones, come over here, I'll take care of you, things like that. Put that personal touch back in people's lives, and they loved it, and I was good at it. And so that's where I found that I had something. I had a new place, a new career in my life, and it's going to be some type of sales guy. And I just stayed in banking and just worked all the way up.
And that was fulfilling for you.
It was.
That's great. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I couldn't see myself going to like a sporting goods store. Or I wanted a career path, right? I had some education, so I wanted a career path and try to make something of it. So that's where it started, and it just kind of escalated from there. I just grew.
Now, I know a lot of guys, and, well, you know, I know a handful of guys, because I can't say I know a lot of guys, but a handful of guys that have been released for whatever reason or another from the minor leagues. And first of all, they went through what you went through. I know one guy said, I spent a full 6 months just sitting in a chair staring at a wall.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea what I was going to do. But so many of them end up back in, I hate to put it, I hope they're not listening, but these low-paying high school or someplace doing some kind of coaching. That's because they can't get baseball out of their head.
Yeah.
How were you able to do that?
My dad. Once again, there was no. Once I got through my little dark spot, it wasn't no sitting around on the couch. It was like foot to the button. Let's go, man. I mean, when you come from a thick Irish family from Belfast, Ireland, I mean, there's no sitting around. You're going to move. You're going to be grabbed by the ear and put into service. So I was allowed the time to recoup and get better because at that time I was good for nobody. I mean, everybody knew that.
So your dad got that.
My dad got that.
And
He allowed me to have that space because he knew he knew what it meant to me, what it meant to him. I mean, it crushed him too. I was like the little trophy child, so to speak, if you will, and it just crushed everybody because everybody thought that this kid's going to have a good crack at it. Would I have made it, Charlie? I don't know, but I don't know if I'd have made it. And that's the thing that hurts the most, is I don't know. I don't know.
Gosh, I know. I got that. I have so many of the same personal stories. My son, when he was in high school, he was ranked really highly out here on the West Coast, but he says, I don't know how I am across the United States. I mean, they consider me a good catcher here on the West Coast. I don't know the East Coast.
Oh, yeah.
There could be guys so he went and tried out for this, national team, West Coast, and he got to compare himself with the entire nation. And so, but he had that same question, how, I don't know. I don't know until at least I can try. At least I get put in the situation to try.
Yeah, it's funny when you're down in high school and things like that, and you're all league and all conference and all star and one of the best players in the league, that kind of thing. You're just riding high because you think nobody can stop you until you get to the same place where all those guys are equally as the same talent you have and have the same desire you have, and now it becomes a real fist fight as who's going to get through this thing. So it's kind of funny. You go from riding high and all this, everybody knows your name kind of stuff, right? To all of a sudden I'm a number on somebody's scorecard, and get out there and work your butt off, son.
Get out there and work your butt off, and then get onto the bus.
Get on the bus and go, boy.
Get on the bus, put on your headset. Oh, you didn't have headsets and all that.
No.
Oh, man, you did. You guys were without all the toys. These guys
we had
have
nothing like what
these
these kids
guys have
today.
all the toys.
Nothing.
Yeah. So I want to wrap this up, and I want to ask you two questions to wrap it up.
Okay.
Let me take it the opposite of what I had written down. If you were to have a conversation with a current minor leaguer, what advice might you give him?
Ooh, that's a tough question. Outside of all the normal things about having the drive and the desire and the commitment and all that stuff, that's all goes without saying. I would be just continue to believe in yourself all the time, no matter what you go through, whether you're 5 for 5 one day or 0 for 5 the next. That's got to run off. That game has to be gone. You have to refocus. It's a matter of every day is a different day. One day at a time. We hear that adage out there all the time, and that's the way you have to actually treat the sport. So I would really understand that this guy has to put, everything you can do is just that one day. Let's finish Wednesday. That's all we got to do is finish Wednesday. That kind of mentality. And also, if you have a college education, don't be afraid to poke around. Some night school, ask questions. Some people say, well, they're admitting defeat. Okay, maybe you are to a certain extent. I wasn't doing that, so maybe I'm not the right person to give advice on that. But that would be some advice I'd give some of these kids today. Make sure you have something to fall back on because it's over. One spring afternoon, it's over.
Yeah, and besides that, it's a great opportunity for learning too.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's always gonna help.
Yeah, doesn't hurt to keep your ear, especially with all the media we have today, your ears and eyes open. You never know.
How do you? Because I hear that a lot, that you've got to play. This game especially is one day at a time. You could hit 2 home runs. You've got to completely forget about that your next game, or you could, strike out 5 times. You got to completely forget about that. How in the world do you do that? Where do you, now I know there's meditation and all sorts of things, but in your day,
No.
we weren't into all of this stuff. How in the world do you do that?
It was just focus. You really had to just get out of yourself and get focused. I mean, there's, like I said, nobody really meditated or did anything like that. It just was a matter of just saying, okay, I hit two home runs. I was 3 for 5 with 2 home runs on Tuesday. I took a caller on Wednesday. Here's Friday. So I know I can do it. It's not like I'm in a slump and I'm going 0 for 35. I know I can play this game. So, yeah, okay. You have to learn that that's part of the game. There's nobody that's hit 1,000 in baseball. As far as I know, there's nobody that's ever hit 1,000 batting average in baseball, right? So you have to know. I mean, think about this, right? You get paid millions of dollars to fail 70% of the time in baseball.
I know.
Think about that.
That is.
If you're batting 3 for 10, batting 300, you're making millions of dollars, failing 70% of the time.
Yeah.
That's the way you have to look at it. You have to look at it. Listen, okay, it's a bad day, but I know I can make it better.
You know what my son says is a perfect day for a hitter? 4 at-bats, 1 hit, and 1 walk. So you're batting .333 and you've got a .500 on base percentage.
Yep.
So
And you got a nice signing bonus, and you've got a nice multi-million-dollar contract for failing 70% of the time. And I used to tell the kids that I coached that all the time. I said, listen, you can't take this to heart. I mean, I know you had a rough day, but now I always bring in the major league thing. Look at these guys. These guys are the best in the world, okay? The best you can ever face in the world as far as ball players, and they fail 70% of the time at the plate.
Okay, so we have listening to us now. This will be our last question. We have listening to us right now. We don't have a lot of kids playing baseball, so I'm not guessing there's a whole lot of 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds listening to this podcast right now. But you know who is listening are their parents.
Some of us older guys out there.
And they can either be a bridge,
Mm-hmm.
or they can be a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen both. I've seen dads on their sons so hard after the game
Yeah, that's sad.
that when they're done with high school, they don't want anything to do with baseball. They're done because the dads have just been chewing their butts out the whole time, and they're saying
That's what happened to my brother. I've got a younger brother, 9 years younger than I, who was a catcher. I mean, at 12 years old, he could hit it out of a major league ballpark. He's like 6'1", nothing like me, 6'1", stocky. He's slow as a turtle, but he's a catcher. He was 6'1", stocky, and could pound the ball, and we thought a great opportunity. So my dad and I we focused all our energy on him, and we worked him out, and he played 365 days a year was baseball, and he burned out. Sophomore year at Cal State Fullerton. Getting ready to start the next year.
Is that right, at Cal State Fullerton?
Getting ready to start the next year, probably in his junior year. He quit. Just came home and quit. And I feel responsible for a lot of that.
So
you're right. You have to have balance.
What would your advice be to parents? Let's wrap it up with that.
Yeah, I mean, really, just allow your child to grow. First of all, allow them to make sure it's fun. Have fun with it. Okay, you really have to have fun with it. If you want to play, the child's going to take it from there. You're not going to need to give him any motivation. If he wants to play, he's going to play. Just don't criticize them. Be there and support them. Don't be yelling in the stands. Don't become that armchair dad that didn't have the chance and try to live vicariously through his son. I see so much of that. I was lucky. My dad was very firm with me and very determined, but he didn't bring it to the games. We did that off-site, one-on-one. We'd get focused and we'd get heated arguments and stuff like that, but I didn't mind that because I knew it was for the better of me. But he never showed that in front of somebody else to somehow disgrace me or something like that.
Oh, so to keep it private. If anything, keep it private. If you're going to have this conversation, keep it private.
But I would hear this from him until he goes, oh, you went 3 for 4, but damn it, you should have been 4 for 4. You missed that last pitch. You hit a low outside pitch, and that would be my dad in private.
That's a little pushy.
Yeah, that's in private.
That's a little pushy.
But never did it affect me when I was out actually really playing. He always was just very supportive and caring. So really, just let your kids develop. Let them develop. You'll know. Once you see it happening, get involved in it. Ask coaches, let coaches coach, let umpires ump. I know we get heated about it, but those umpires, especially when you're in the little leagues, that's all volunteer stuff.
Yeah, they're just dads.
They're out there trying to help, and they're just dads trying to do the best they can.
Yeah, and they quite frankly stink. But
a lot of them do. A lot of them do, but there are a few exceptions out there that know the game well enough.
Yeah, I was thinking of parents, and you were talking about parents let the child grow as on their own, and I like that parents sort of in some ways being fully supportive but stepping back on the child's performance. It's like I used to get pissed off if my son struck out, and then all of a sudden I started thinking,
he's going to strike out.
Yeah, that was his.
I hate to tell you, he's going to strike out.
That was
more than once in his career.
That was his goal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He went up to the plate trying to strike out. Charlie, what the hell are you thinking? This child is going up there trying.
I'm going to take 3 straight pitches right down the middle and just walk back to the dugout.
Yeah, that's it. You just say that's not what he's trying to do. What kind of compassion are you giving to your son? Yeah. If you
don't want to enforce the negative there, right?
Yeah, it takes I tell you, it takes a lot of growth on the parent side as well.
It does.
Mike, it has been incredible having you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for that time of educating us in minor league baseball. And I want to thank everybody listening to the next chapter with Charlie. I'm Charlie Hedges, and looking forward to seeing you or hearing me, I guess, next week. Bye for now.